I in here twice? That's what drives me crazy.
I'm cold right now.
Yeah.
Cold Eastern. Just gonna go heat it up. Is it? Yeah.
It's gonna warm up in May, so.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I know, warmer, rainy day recess, might like it better cold. All right, where am I? Let's do an email to somebody.
Let's open.
Yeah, it's really.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Like,
Everybody.
Hey,
How you doing?
doing all right. We still need to set up that time for you to meet with Cheryl. I think you were gonna give me some dates. Yeah,
Oh,
well, and the reality is it's only been a couple of weeks since we were in here with our big long meeting, right?
I know.
So I'm like, oh, we haven't done it, and I'm like, but it's only been 2 weeks.
It seems like that was a month ago.
It does. It does.
does seem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder if her schedule is fixed. Can we work around that?
Yeah, she is kindergarten teacher, so after 12:30 most days she can fit in a meeting, so. You know, whatever day you can be here in the afternoon, you know, and give her an hour or so, I think
Yeah.
it's fine,
Okay.
yeah,
I'll do this week.
okay.
Let me get back to my calendar tomorrow.
Okay,
Like,
all right, that's great.
Does anybody here watch This Old House? It's kind of a random question.
Not for
Not
a
right.
while.
Yeah,
I
it's
used
been a
to,
while
I
for me
used
too.
to,
Love
you
that
know.
show.
I joke that's one of the biggest reasons that I became an architect. Show, and I don't know how I convinced my wife to start watching with me. Which does. And we watched it last night, and they're doing a house back on the East Coast, and they brought in a animal who painted was your, and the homeowner who was remodeling the house has kiddos that went to a Waldorf
Waldorf
school
school,
on
yeah.
the East Coast. They
Uh-huh.
fell in love with it, they brought in the lead. It was a whole process. They showed from beginning to end. She painted.
Uh-huh.
It was cool.
Mhm.
One thing I didn't know, and maybe this is just the way that they did it, but they had a clay primer that they put on the wall. So it made the wall surface really porous, and they had an acrylic color in it that they put in water and basically made a huge bucket of watercolor paint. And then it had 8 different brushes, dry brushes, wet brushes, thin ones, big ones.
Wow.
It was cool.
Mhm.
I got excited.
Mhm.
Hi.
Are you staying and keeping it on going?
I can't.
You don't have to, that's
Okay.
you.
I don't mind. I don't know if I can share stuff or not. I was having technical difficulties at the finance meeting
Yeah.
tonight and
I
it
don't
just dropped us off like randomly and I'm like,
have anything to share,
okay,
like,
all right.
Next.
Fine.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so we're good whenever.
I have a digital copy of what
It's been
I'm
like
to share today.
so
Maybe I
we're
could
just here.
record my
How you doing?
screen.
Yeah,
Wait, I hear
yeah,
tired.
I think I can get that for you.
Okay,
So,
shall we just go for it? Julie's not coming. And
Okay.
Kevin was on that email then, and she had a conflict.
I don't think I have anybody in the waiting room right now. Um,
maybe you don't need to share.
I don't know. I mean, we can't, it's up to you. You can. say-
Yeah, if somebody pops in, then we can.
Do that.
Oh, it's so cold. How can I bring something?
I
to sit
put the
on?
heater on tonight. I went next door and found the thermostat.
I'll just turn it off.
Did you really?
Not.
It is just so warmer here than last
I
time.
was, I didn't turn it up too high either, so.
And that one laptop put in with a good high bar with.
Supposed to be
nice-
some 30 again.
I just take my laptop desk, now I put a little plastic one. and-
Like, sit on it.
Yeah. And Lindy and Ray,
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I do not recommend.
I'm gonna.
No. Okay,
I'm gonna-
are we good for me to call to order?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Go
gonna call to
ahead.
order at 6:02.
Yes.
Just don't sit next to me.
No, it's not that at all.
Sure it is.
Okay, back. Okay, let's read the invocation together if we will. You ready?
This is our school, may peace dwell here. May the rooms be full of contentment. May love abide here. Love of one another, love of our school, and love of life itself. Let us remember that as many hands build a house,
So many hearts filled the school. You. Okay, let's go for roll call. Like it's always a mixed bag. Who's here? Okay, start with you, Beck. Okay, Renee Jones here. Trisha up there too, isn't it? We have enough, we have one of every person, right? So we have a parent,
Staff.
a charter, and a staff. I don't know, we're making any
You're supposed to
motion.
have a second,
Staff, like
Yeah.
you're like an admin and then a.
yeah, so he's the admin, you don't have a teacher or a
Oh,
classified person here,
You
so
don't have a
no, you
teacher.
do not have a quorum
Okay.
tonight.
So we just can't vote. We can still
Right.
have the meeting.
You can talk,
Well, I don't know if we're gonna vote on anything tonight.
yeah,
I can be concerned about that, okay, really?
well, considering we can't vote on anything, we'll probably be done by 6:45.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know, but,
Yeah.
well,
Okay,
well, or I can say, since we don't have a quorum, we don't have a quorum anyway, so
Yeah.
whether you're here or not.
yeah. Okay,
Okay,
so then let's go to public comment. Anybody have any public comments? Where we get into agenda items? There's still nobody in the,
Still nobody in the waiting room, so. we're Okay.
okay, so then we can move to the, oh. No, we're not gonna do the consent agenda because we can't vote, so that will have to get moved to
Okay.
next. So moving to item 4, agenda modification.
so we do not yet have a finalized resolution exemption for city ordinances, so
Okay,
we wouldn't be able to vote on it anyway, so
okay,
that's in the
that-
works.
off of the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was fast.
Or
Or the bottom. Yeah.
So now we're
One
at
item.
the most important.
Set a record.
Okay, so. Moving to item 5, business, 5.1 got scratched, so we're at 5.2, new building discussion, which is a revisit of your facial requirements.
I love it.
So
Yeah.
before we start, just because maybe we've had a few weeks, if anybody has any thoughts or questions that popped up after that, my only thought was, I was like, how are we ever going to afford this? And that was my thought that I keep going on in my head, and it's so hard because at the same time, we don't know how much money we're gonna get, right? So like, I feel like we're constantly, you know, make a school, but we don't know how much money we have to make a school.
That is one of the biggest challenges
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's a shift in mindset, in some ways, because the $20 million school is expensive.
Yeah.
$30 million, $40 million school is an expensive school.
Yeah.
When you step into the world of public funding, it's just sort of.
Yeah,
I wanted to share, I was actually gonna save this for the end, but since we're talking about it, I'm currently designing a TK through 12 campus for Chief Charter School.
oh, yeah,
Going up in Paradise, they're trying to relocate Paradise. Their Paradise campus to the new campus in Paradise. They're not leaving Chico.
yeah,
Sorry. They're currently in land deals, finally negotiated a home for the school. And they're also trying to figure out how much it's gonna cost. Currently, they have a local contractor on board. It sounds like they might go to lease back method, which is interesting because they're using private money if they're not involved for and it just so happens that their school is about the exact same size as where we're probably gonna end up. It's actually maybe even a little bit bigger by about 4,000 square feet. And the preliminary opinion, the cost just came back from the contractor this last week. At exactly $20 million.
Mm.
So, that was interesting to me because the numbers that I had told you before were quite a bit more than. that.
yeah,
And it was actually kind of justifying to see that because the reasons why those numbers have told you before were higher were because of the TSA component,
mhm,
which adds about 15 to 20% going to the Department of State Architect. Just because they require a higher level of design,
yeah,
and therefore higher level of construction. And then also prevailing wage limit because it's public funding adds anywhere, it's really tough to tell, but anywhere between 10 and 30% of the project. It all depends on the local market, the labor supply, and all that stuff. So if you take their 20 million for about the same size school, add the low or the high to it, it takes it anywhere between 25 to 30. So,
Adding those things in, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What?
Think about-
I would just say, like, as we're going through this. Really being mindful of what it is we need to be successful, right? Like, as we're going through these. Spaces that we all would love and desire to have, what do we need to be successful?
Absolutely.
So we could actually have it,
Mhm.
so. That was kind of what I did.
To piggyback on what you're saying, and I said this from the beginning,
Yeah.
let's be mindful of the spaces, what we need and what's realistic, and we may not get what the person wants, we have the bigger picture, maybe get later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a little.
But I think you gotta start somewhere, right? You gotta start with what we, all of our hopes, dreams and wants, and then go from there.
Like a preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I know.
I think that's a really important point too.
Yes.
because, Based on our discussion last time and all the comments that led us to this point tonight, I feel like the program that we put together is a pretty good representation of what is really, really needed.
Mhm.
I would encourage us to not go through and try to chop up way too much, because we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
The funding source might be that can help you.
Yeah, but we get the money then.
Yeah.
Oh, we should have got all this, that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so in doing that, so let's say, okay, this is what we really want, and then we don't get that much funding, and then at that point, we can. Still, like, we're not so far, it's gonna be expensive to change and cut.
Yeah, so this kind of depends on how Julie and their folks want to proceed with the project, but what I understand from looking at the district and what Julie has told us in our discussion so far is that the district prefers hard bids on the projects. Which means that there needs to be a full set of drawings and specifications, a much paper that they give you a contractor and they give you a hard bid price back. If that is the way that they want to go through this, then we have to design what we want them to price.
Mhm.
And then, right, we kind of have to guess where we're gonna land before we jump. If there is any interest from Julie's side, the district side, in alternative project delivery methods, which we talked about for the very first time in Mitchell.
Yeah,
There are other ways to skin the cat and to pay the design team, not just myself, but all the electrical, plumbing, mechanical design, whatever, to get to probably a 95% complete drawing set. Before we even know what price it's associated. The other thing to think about too in that realm is that we have construction cost estimators on board, that's part of my team that are here to look at the project. So they will give us some preliminary feedback on pricing before we even start designing. So that's kind of our rudder to keep us going in the right direction. What needs to be coupled along with that is the funding source of dual districts.
Yeah.
So it's a process of making those two things, deciding who else are going to be drawing. And
Okay.
So. Lots to think about.
Okay.
All that is to say, what I would say as we go back through this is. I don't think that, we. Are going to be able to carve out enough from this just by talking with each other and. Removing storage closets or changing the size of the conference rooms to really make it so that this project is affordable.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we're not gonna cut out 10,000 square feet, so.
yeah, you got it. But it's a great thing to keep in the back of your mind, and I love the spirit behind it, because I grew up in charter schools and I'm used to designing charter schools, and that spirit's important to what makes it successful. Let's not lose sight of it, but let's not. Be too focused.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Were you able to talk to Cheryl with the
That is not.
Okay.
Susan and I were just talking about that, when I say that sometimes I can look at it.
Okay. Good.
I did have a couple things, from last time that were action items or holdovers on my list. But I derailed the train of thought, so we're getting comments.
Yeah, so does anybody else have anything, any thoughts that bounced around after?
Yeah, what was the parking? Process you're talking about?
Yeah,
You had certain parking.
You
I don't
mentioned,
know.
yeah, you mentioned parking at the end of the meeting and both Buck and I were like, huh, what is he talking about?
Or we did all. You know, we were supposed to park.
Yeah, so probably what I was getting at was, I tried to do the schematic site sketch with a single story building on it, and it didn't leave us enough room to have as much parking as I think I would like.
With a single story,
Right.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay,
So when we went double, with two.
two-story would be all right,
Yeah.
all right, that's fine.
The one thing that I did think about, I was over at Marsh. Those last weekend, no, I drove by there like at 3 o'clock and I was like, oh dear goodness.
Mhm,
Like we aren't getting through
Right.
there that way
mhm,
efficiently
nope.
for pickup
Yeah.
and drop off.
Oh,
It was like backed up on the 30.
yeah, I've been over there at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
so something for us to keep.
So I'll have to-
Was that a rainy day?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
Yeah, like coming in from the approach from that Bruce Road side, not from whatever that's. I don't know. Yeah.
B,
Yeah,
it has another name.
yeah, I think Humboldt runs this way and there's a.
Humboldt's over there and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
D is over here,
So-
yeah,
But it's, I know.
so.
This was my carrot at the end of the stick to leave you with something happy to think about after we talk.
Oh.
But I'll fast forward to it just to show you, this is kind of the size and layout that we've been contemplating for now. Nothing set in stone. I tried to describe this a little bit to you in our last meeting, but we actually put some pen to paper just to give us something to kind of think about as we talk. It's a 2-story footprint. After whittling down all the things that we talked about last time and shuffling the program around, we ended up at about 45,000 square feet total. That's upstairs and downstairs combined. For a footprint of 22,500. Right now, parking is shoved all the way to the west end, mostly due to grade changes and trying to get us as far away from that intersection as we can. And then the drop off stretches along parallel to Apodaca. Not on street, but off street, so cars can circulate through.
Apodaca is D.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, that's the street that it's on, yeah.
okay.
So we're trying to balance a couple of things. The site has a lot of grade change to it. We're trying to be aware of the intersection there at Bruce Road, which is busy. And then also the street coming back there is actually pretty narrow.
Mhm.
The whole Marion Park subdivision was designed as some narrow streets, so. Doing our best to get everything off the streets and in your own parking and drop off areas. And then, of course, last but not least, but the courtyard area right now is. That sort of U shape, the part in the middle of the building there, and connecting that to the outdoor area, which of course connects to. And then there's all sorts of fun things like us thinking through solar influences, making sure you get the best natural daylight for the building.
Mhm.
Lots of thought.
Yeah.
It's just a simple space, right?
It's fun.
Does that help the park?
Yes.
Hey.
More comments, I'm sure.
We're good.
Cool.
Walk us through. So, Bryn, you guys weren't here last time, right?
Right, I'm playing catch up.
Yeah, so, okay.
I'm listening.
So this is kind of broken down by section. And it has the square footages of what like that would be. So like the darker gray on the top would be the total for that area and then each individual area. So last time Kevin brought this, we went through it and said, oh, that's right, this is right, add this. So this is kind of the second run. Through that is kind of what we're doing today. So, which gives us that for about 45,000 square feet, which is a little bit smaller than what we're hearing now, right? Or like at 50.
So I'm into conferences and meeting rooms.
Cool.
So large conference room, space for 10, 400 square feet. And
8 people before and 350 square feet previously.
right, and then I go down to my community resource room and what was I looking at? Then I'm looking at wellness room for 500 square feet. So why do I have?
I think the wellness was set
bigger-
up like classroom size to have desks, not like one table like the
Yeah,
conference.
well, that's what it's like. To me, it's the same, it's kind of the same thing, so So why are we at 500 there, and then the counseling room class size 400, so I've got. You know, so it's sort of that, then I have 300 class size of 8 for intervention, so I feel like. I'm, you know, what's
The rhyme or reason.
what's the rhyme or reason is all.
I'm glad you bring that up.
Mhm.
I mentioned I had a couple holdovers from last meeting, and one of them was I believe you were going to check with the wellness.
With Ashley.
Yeah, and I didn't really have a chance to do that, so I apologize for that.
That's the reason why those rooms are kind of odd.
Yeah,
We haven't changed them, they were what they were last time, which is pretty much what you have now, but
Mm-hmm.
I heard a lot of feedback that they're oversized for now.
the ones we have now are big, you know.
The ones we have now, I think are full classroom, they're like 96.
So I'm thinking that when I like look at my office, it's just 250, which I could easily fit 5 kids in that and half,
Yeah.
and many times.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure why I have a counselor that needs 400 square feet when I can do 5 middle schoolers pretty easily and
And-
250. So
yeah.
it's, those are the kind of questions I have for those. I mean, I, you know, it might, if we all will do all of the cuts, it's like 1,000 square feet. So it's like not really gonna change that, but it's just
think-
that sense.
Yeah, you were gonna check with Ashley. so we
Yeah.
just didn't change them.
So, yeah, so, okay. So that's
If
what,
she needed more than like, if that was a sufficient or.
Yeah,
it was
I-
just like what the.
I
setup
think-
Needs to be.
yeah, I think definitely the counseling office doesn't need to be, I mean, she's got a lovely classroom right now. But I've never seen her use that full size, so just wondering what the sense was, why we're saying 5 and 8, and we have a classroom for 8, so that's what I'm asking, classroom for 8 at 300, and then a class for 5 at 400, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Was that just, you know,
So take the wellness room, class size 5 at 500, and the counseling class size 5 at 400, and put those out of your mind. 'Cause
Okay.
Those don't match.
okay,
Um,
okay,
The intervention room, was sized a bit differently last time, and that was.
It was 300.
mm,
300 for 8, so
That
300
is-
is. Would be a lot. I mean, well, if the kids are in there in desks, they might be able, because I'm thinking again, I have 250, then they have 300. 8 would be a lot to have
It
in
really
that
depends
room,
on-
so,
On the setting, right?
Okay.
In your office with 250, we can pack a lot of people on there, because you're probably sitting around that table. right?
Yeah,
A little more
mhm,
efficient. If
mhm.
you're in a classroom setting where there's tables and chairs spread out.
Yeah, it's a little more, okay, all right.
So what's the setup for that intervention room?
Generally, it's a table with kids sitting around it, she's teaching a lesson to
Okay.
that's what I've seen her use, here.
How big is our library?
Now, our
Mhm.
current.
Is that our current library size, 960?
I believe so, yes. I
Because,
downsized that from where it was. before.
That's where our interventionist meets with students right now. And I walked in today on them.
One table.
She uses one table. Maybe 2 like this pushed together, but the kids are just kind of around her. There were about 8 in there today.
So do they
So-
need a separate intervention room if they're using the library?
Well,
That's
if
a good
they're in
question.
there,
It's a really
Yeah.
good question.
who gets to use the library?
Yeah. it
Yeah,
depends
if
on
they're in
schedule.
there.
Just share it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's possible that.
That's generally what she uses. I think she uses her classroom for upper grades and then the
Yeah.
library for lower grades.
Yeah.
Cause we like to not walk the littles through the upper grade area.
What does your schedule look like? Those sorts of things, are they on?
I can look at her schedule.
Yeah, but she's in classes a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's actually in classrooms working with kids a lot of the day, the upper grade math. So that's like the first period of the day. She's in her classroom with the upper grade kids. Other than that, she's in classrooms, or she'll do pull-ups partially because they're available. You know, it's like today I was in with fifth grade, and so she pulled about 6 kids out to go across the way to the special ed classroom because it was, it's just easier, but I don't know how much she
Like you're thinking
actually
for
does for
scheduling
that.
if the library still has.
Yeah.
Available for other people to use.
Because I know right now you don't have a librarian on staff, but if you'd like to, would you use library more if you had a chance to sworn in there, then it
Yeah.
sounds like they're not even done.
They're not, I mean, it would be, yeah, if we had a librarian, we would probably be able to pull classrooms in, but it's never been a full-time position.
Sure.
So it would be,
Even if we were at full capacity, it probably still wouldn't be a position we could support full time.
probably not, yeah,
The library.
Yeah,
yeah.
so is there, like, do we need to check with the interventionist on whether or not she needs her own room, or if we can
Or
utilize
does
just
she
the
need an
library
office and
or
then
an
she
office
just
for
travels
herself?
with
Yeah,
kids?
yeah,
Yeah,
so,
Okay,
Something I'm thinking of finding out is not a lot of people realize the square footage of rooms that they're in.
Mhm.
So Susan noticed in her office, I'm like, this is 250 square feet. I don't think people realize this is 250 square feet.
Yeah.
They're requesting 400. This office is big, so I think they need to see that visually.
Yeah,
Oh, this
that's
is
a good
this is
point.
fine. Yeah.
it is
Yeah,
hard to
but,
visualize
Yeah.
what that looks like.
they're like, how big is Karen's office now?
But less than 200.
200, something like that, so,
What's yours, Maggie?
I don't know, like 150 maybe?
yeah, 150, not that.
That's mine.
Mhm.
It's interesting because the Department of Education provides a lot of guidelines for classroom spaces, especially by grade level, but then when it comes to some of these specialist ones, it doesn't. So it's up to us.
Okay. Ashley and Abigail, let me just talk to. And Karen. Just for sizing, I've kind of been saying, so 100 square feet times $800. A square foot is like $80,000 for 100 square feet, so. I mean, we may not end there, like you said, with the funding, but that's part of let's get people to think about that. Do you really need that extra 100 square feet? If we're gonna have to borrow $80,000 to give that to you, it's. So trying to get people to think in those terms at the time.
It's good.
That's a good one, Susan. Any other comments? That's been true altogether.
Anybody else? There's an elevator on, so I have a 2-story. Yeah, I was wondering if we were looking at the alternatives, so we did decide that's gonna be,
Like the ramp.
yeah.
Yeah, we talked about, that was talked about here, is if we could just have a ramp rather than a elevator. I
think
don't
when
know.
I feel like we talked about like the cost of it really isn't substantially different. And it takes up a fair amount of space to move it around, if I recall. Yeah.
What's interesting though is that there's a lot of change on that site. From one end of it to the other was about 8 feet worth of drop
Yeah.
in the east-west direction, which was surprising to me, but
Wow.
that's why we have civil engineers on the team. Is anybody familiar with the corner of Marigold and East Avenue where Pleasant Valley High School is? There's one
Oh,
building
yeah.
that's pushed way down.
Yeah.
It's got a retaining wall,
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. That's one option. We can push the building down, push it closer to the Bruce Road intersection and have that big difference from the sidewalk down to where folks might be walking around the building. But it costs a lot, right? Building retaining walls and excavating all that, it costs a lot. If we weren't to do that, we could build the building up higher and basically cut half and fill half and level the site enough so that we could push the building down 8 feet, but maybe 4 feet. That's one option. Another option might be building 2-story, pushing the first story all the way down and then actually embracing the grade change on the site to bring that ramp element back in. So there might be a way to do a circulation that takes you from first floor to second floor without an elevator that would be accessible compliant. The biggest problem is that it really disrupts the way that you would use the
Use the
school.
school.
the circulation pathway wouldn't be as easy as walking up the stair to the second floor. You'd have to walk all the way down to the other building, up the ramp to get to the second floor. That type of thing. So it might be possible. You might not save that much by doing it, but I think it really is a detriment to the way that you would use the school. So elevators are not the best in the world, but they're not the worst thing in the world. So,
Well,
a necessary evil, I would go
and
with.
if we're talking about getting the middle schoolers to walk around the building, that, I mean, because the I mean, it would cause other potential issues as well, just to managing the children. Yeah, so.
So
Okay,
elevators.
So use of the elevator would be limited anyway.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That's my experience in seeing the charter schools. Fortunately, they're labor get used.
Right.
Unless people are bringing things up and down, which might happen 1 or 2 times a day.
Or if kid hurts their leg and needs to,
Yeah,
you know,
that's a-
is on
for
crutches
disability,
and
yeah.
disability issues, so, which is why we have elevators primarily.
do you want to start at the top and
Sure.
go through, so we don't miss anything?
Yeah, our discussion last time was so helpful. Going into each section in detail. So if we want to stop and talk about anything along the way, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll run through as we go and describe to you the changes that we made from our discussion last time. From reception area on down to director's office, nothing up there has changed. So reception, front desk office, and open office are the same, with the exception that in the open office area, we deleted the private attendance office and put that back in the open office area, which changes from a total open office area of 300 square feet to 400 square feet. I also increased that a little bit there because we had the concept of benching, which I think was something that Julie brought up. Basically, people get to use a desk when they're, stopping by, or teachers need a small workspace to sit. Sometimes people call that little workstations. So there's at least one, maybe two in that open office. Director's office did not change. We still have that 250. The assistant director's office did not change either. We removed the dedicated square footage for the confidential storage closet and the supplies closet. And instead, we're trying to be efficient and saying that there will be a lockable storage cabinet somewhere. I checked your electrical room and measured what I think you might be using currently for is it supply storage?
Yes.
So that's right about 100 square feet.
Okay.
So if we were to find a way to get lockable storage cabinets in your office area or somewhere on the square you might prefer, that would be a more cost effective way than building a very square.
Okay.
And then nothing else has changed for the rest of it. Under distributed administration, we initially had a small conference room, as we talked about last time. Would it really be used that much? The answer was no. We also thought about the pantry function, which is currently in your small conference room. We've relocated that down into 02.01, the community resources room that we talked about. So to jump down to there, that room now is set up for parent staff hub for resources, its pantries, its overall function is to be supported. That one's still a little bit of an enigma to me. I talked at length with staff about that when I had the tour, and it was the one guy who mentioned that to me, and I recall last time I came back and described it. I don't think anybody had heard about it. He said it to me and heard.
Yeah.
So that one, I put it at a check mark next to, because if there's any way to find some efficiencies by combining that with another use, we might be able to do so.
That community resource room,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's not, so.
And to me, a meeting room or a conference room could be used for
With
that.
cabinets for the pantry.
Yeah,
That's a great
you know, because it's.
Yeah.
So it would be like, kind of like that we would want to have, so we could have coffee and chat, you know.
Yeah, when you
Space
do
for,
have stuff.
parents to chill, or to have my, dinners
Donuts
with
with
the
the
director, yeah. Yeah, so it would be, so I could see it as being used as a meeting room, as well as, the resources that she's thinking about. It basically is a meeting room for parents, but she wants to be able to have resources around, the needs of, low-income families, so that they would be focused on that. But I don't see why it would not be a room for meetings also. It's kind of fills that small
We could-
conference room.
I mean, I know 400 square feet isn't large, but we could have our committee. I feel like we could fit in there for a committee or a board meeting if we don't have a lot of public.
Yeah,
And if that case, then you would go into the big room or
Yeah.
whatever.
okay,
Or
yeah,
somebody made the comment last time that board meetings could have classrooms too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just instead of trying to reconfigure a library for that, like that's already kind of set up for a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So like we talked about, yeah. So yeah, or a classroom.
I'm glad you said all that because I think that makes sense to try and combine the community resources. Perhaps with the large conference room.
yeah, that's a possibility, yeah,
Yeah, could it be one? Yeah, do you
Yeah.
need both?
that's a good question. I'm not sure we would need both.
Okay.
But then the community resource room would need to be larger. So that we could fit the IEP meetings, that's
Yeah.
the main thing, the IEP meetings.
And that's just because like this one, they are the same square footage, but we're gonna have the cabinets in there that are gonna take up space. And we'd
Right.
like to be able to have
Wait a
a
minute, now,
a
what
bar
activities
top.
were gonna take place there?
IEP.
An IEP meeting, right, but
Uh,
also
like-
sharing that with the,
Community, like parents, like
okay.
if we're doing donuts with the director, or we're doing like
Okay.
Karen's hosting.
A group of parents to
Yeah.
discuss an issue or, or,
She described computer workstations too, if somebody, parent perhaps needs to come in and have help running a job application or something.
and we could use the Chromebooks to do that.
Yeah.
So
have a
we
dedicated-
don't have to have
Great.
like a set of
The
hard
Computers,
bench
drives.
idea
Yeah.
would work for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the benching idea would work for that. Thank you, Maggie.
But if we did it like at a 500 square foot, so we have room for all the cabinets for the pantries. That.
Yeah, it would be, I mean, picture this room,
Like half the
combined
size,
with
right?
all of the stuff in the.
I just
the
keep
conference room
picturing
we
an
have.
IEP in progress and somebody coming in. to
Well,
get
no, that
stuff
wouldn't
out of
happen,
the
cause that doesn't happen during the day here.
Okay.
So it's not gonna happen because of geography. You know,
And so,
we're not gonna schedule an IEP meeting and then, I mean,
so general things like if they're coming for the pantry, it's
Mhm.
it's
pretty much
after
It's
school.
after school,
Mhm.
Friday afternoons, it's the big
Okay.
day, so they have those kind of, so it would be rare that somebody would need to drop into that room. They would probably drop in and talk to Karen in her office. For if they
Good.
were needing some, advice on housing or something, they could do it that way.
Mhm.
And so we still have her office there, but that community room could be community conference room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we would need, I think the storage for the food, it's uncomfortable. To have a community room and then this food here, because, it just,
But if it's in cabinets.
but if it's so we would need cabinets,
Storage
that's what
for
I'm
it,
saying, we
yeah.
need storage for
Yeah,
it,
so
so
it's
it's,
King
neat and
cabinet.
organized and not.
yeah,
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
and close, be able to put
Yeah.
it behind closed doors, I
Yeah.
think that.
Not people coughing while there's foods in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or going, well, spaghetti for dinner
Yeah.
tonight, I mean, it's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see that. for sure.
So I think that's the main thing, is she needs some storage for the work that she does.
So we're comfortable with combining those and making it more like 500 square feet, it sounds like.
Cool. I'm good with that.
Okay. Large conference room we just touched on, we renamed it current council storage and increased the size. Then I was under, we didn't increase it, I went back and checked. The existing storage in the top of the grade was under there, checked, saying that the current council storage is 150. Actually, it's 100,
What is
Okay,
it?
so we had a little bigger.
Okay,
it's pretty packed in there, yeah.
yeah,
Gotta pull stuff out.
some,
together.
some really good organization is going on in that closet, I tell you.
And then the IT file that we renamed it, multiple point of entry, the distribution framework is what all those fancy letters get.
Got it.
Okay.
100 square feet, we need one of those. The faculty lounge was renamed appropriately to the staff lounge, my apologies.
Mhm.
We kept that at 500, the workroom is at 300 still. no changes there, and those are about the sizes that we would recommend for each of those spaces. The staff lounge could maybe get a little bit smaller, but in our experience, a worker on about 300 square feet is pretty good. All right, the guidance section, of student services. I've put a big line to the community resource room. And the community coordinator office did not change. The health office, we did revise just a little bit, in that we took the health restroom and increased the size. Instead of having a shower in there, you're contemplating having no shower as requested, but also providing a changing table. And then the whole nurse office dropped from 200 square feet to 100. If you add back in the example, we're right about where she is now. 250. It could be separate areas, and it could be combined, but we're tracking them separately just in case.
And that was the preference, right, to have them separate.
That was the suggestion.
Yeah.
From you,
Yeah.
Okay.
which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So,
And the support services section. Not a lot of that was changed, except for down at the very bottom, special education. It changed from 1,000 square feet to 1,350 based on Department of Education requirements.
Mm.
Again, if we do have some feedback on the wellness or counseling rooms, I do agree with you that those could definitely get smaller.
okay, I have that on my list on.
Okay.
Make some meetings.
Awesome. And then the intervention room, I have a note next to that one that we'll look for feedback too, if that could take place in the library.
Yeah.
And then possibly add an office to accommodate that. The great room, no changes in that section until we get down to the library. We had it at 1,500 before, but what you got seems like it works pretty well now, so we put that back to 960.
Okay.
I wanted to ask about using it for board meetings, and I think you had said just a second ago, is the library typically set up to let you have board meetings in there, or do you have to shut us?
We've never done it. It was just an idea.
It was an
that we had
idea as we're moving to the new
To
building,
not have like another room just
Okay.
for
but it sounds like, I mean,
that community conference large.
yeah,
room.
we'll use the community conference large room, and then if it's,
Go into a
if
classroom
it's,
or.
yeah,
a
classroom,
Great room if it's
if we have
a lot of public.
what, you
Yeah.
know, because that's like this room, what happens when public comes is there's a line of
Slow right.
couple of, you know, and this is a regular classroom size, so we line chairs up in the back or around the building. So we can do that in the classroom or in the great room. if it's-
Location, that's big too. We don't have a library right now, mostly because, well, not mostly, but due to having to walk all around.
Yeah, it's in the back.
Inside the school,
Yeah.
parents walking through, kids walking through.
Yeah,
It's easy access right here.
that's part
Well,
of the
especially
design.
for IEPs and all that, it'd be better if it's at the front,
Yeah.
like that conference. Room at the front. for those,
Yeah,
Right?
Gotcha.
right.
That was it, for the multi-purpose areas.
Okay.
Down, excuse me, in the childhood classrooms, we have the dedicated storage areas for each learning environment separated out. We removed that, so early childhood storage at 200 square feet was removed. It leaves us with preschool, TK, and K.
And that may change after you meet with them, because like we said, they have like the whole. They have a lot. of food.
She felt like this was, she was like, well, I don't think we, you know, I don't
Yeah.
think she understands the size of the bathroom. maybe,
Yeah, yeah.
but, she's like, I don't need that big a space.
Yeah, yeah.
So, the only thing is if we do have the preschool kinder care room, that's only 20 that's required. Size, because we can't go over 20.
Okay.
But I'm not sure I would want you to change, that would lose some flexibility if that room was smaller than the others, so that's, you know,
It's a good
my
point.
thing.
Well, and yeah, you're thinking like if we ever get a third kindergarten.
When we get a third.
Yeah.
When we
like
get a
that,
third.
Then it would be appropriately sized.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
These class, that's 22. The freshman.
That's great.
They all have their own, yeah. right.
Yeah.
In the elementary classroom section, the dedicated elementary storage is removed as well, for credit of 200 square feet. Anything else with five of them? We're still tracking the multi-occupancy. On the next page, the municipal restrooms, there's bathrooms, again, we removed the dedicated storage for that, 200 square feet. And in the specialized classroom section, we have the description for the science makerspace to include woodworking as we discussed. And then in the description of that, for the comments, we're tracking the thought that this needs to be adjacent to someplace related to outside experience. Just to give you kind of a glance forward to the future, there's another exercise that we'll be doing after this once we start in the space planning program process. That's where we're going on floor plans, right? We'll prepare room data sheets to describe every single room in the classroom or in the school, and asks exactly what you want to see inside of each of them. Tables, chairs, countertops, and specialty lighting, roll-up door for the science classroom, things like that. There's lots of things that we've talked about, and we try to keep really good notes of all this stuff, so it's all there. We formalize it, and we'll have a chance to review it later. But for now, we'll go on the science classroom.
So as we're talking about specialized classrooms, I am concerned for the amount of storage we need for handwork. Right now we have cupboards in the hallway and so on, so I think that discussion, like what do we really need for handwork storage?
I like that thought, and if I remember back to talking to faculty when I was here, the storage for that needs to be in the classroom. It can't be dedicated for a separate place for it.
Is that what they said?
That's what I understood from talking with them.
Okay,
I think that is just the frequency of usage during class time.
Okay.
I think when they get older, they're kind of doing different projects.
It's used both very small and actual.
okay.
Yeah.
So the black cabinets that we have in the hallway, are they not being used by specialties, or is that just old stuff that they never get into? Okay,
I've never seen.
okay. All right,
So her current class is 960?
Correct.
Yeah.
And is that, I mean, I know that there's storage along two of those walls. Is that a sufficient amount?
I know it is.
I actually was mistaken. I apologize. The current handwork room is 812 square feet.
Oh,
So
okay,
little
so
bit
if we give
smaller.
them 960, they'll have,
and better storage setup.
yeah, and
that's what I really took away from our conversation. So the storage really didn't work that well for what they wanted to store there.
yeah,
Once again, that's the wish list versus practical.
Mhm.
right. And the space limits the amount of children that they can work with at a time too, because probably because of the storage. If they're 860 plus the storage, then minus the storage, then that may be part of the reason they struggle to have a full class in there.
Is that a struggle now? They can't get a full class in there.
That is a struggle.
Okay. If it's like 30. It is like if you need space.
You need,
When
they
you-
need to have, they can't put, you can't do desks.
Yeah, yeah. I can
Yeah,
see that.
yeah, it's
That
it could be,
was another plus too was the size of the little surfaces in there. They were described as too small for what they're doing. I think sewing was an issue. Yeah. So things need to be bigger is what I heard. So we took it from 812 to 960. Once we get into the room data sheets process, you'll be able to track their needs and wants a little more specifically.
Okay.
So we can tell them the size of tables that we're contemplating, size of the storage racks or shelving that we're contemplating,
And make, okay.
and if we need to increase more, we can. Right?
I am also looking at science room, math room, and foreign language. With some thought to the fact, my first aha was, we don't have science, makerspace, woodwork. And at any time connected with math, because when they're in math, they're all in math, so nobody else is doing anything else. I'm like, I mean, I'm
Like
not.
the math intervention, you mean?
Yeah, so So
Have
that
them be
doesn't
the
have,
same
it's,
space.
yeah, it could be the same space.
Yeah.
So, and then foreign language again. And when is that actually, how many times is that actually used? So I'm kind of doing that. Like, thinking, because right now we have a Spanish room because we have a room for Spanish. And so would we actually need that, or is it specialty, would we need, so I think some of those kind of discussions. Could be had that might reduce at least one of those rooms.
Yeah, so it sounds like the math and science makers woodworking, because the math is just upper grades, right?
Right.
Math intervention.
Math,
only-
math is only upper grades.
And the science is only upper grades.
Right,
And the.
and the
I mean,
woodworking, well,
they
we'll,
have the club,
if we hoped to have, we would love to have woodworking back, but that would
But
be a
it's upper
specialty.
grades as
It would
well.
be primarily upper grades, yeah.
Well, we
But-
got,
and
so-
the makerspace was upper grades handwork, right?
Yeah, so yeah, and then the science is primarily during main lesson, so. Again, everybody's doing main lesson at the same. So I'm looking at the master schedule
Yeah.
and thinking, do I actually need that many different rooms, or?
Yeah.
Can some shared, that's controversial maybe, but can that be shared? To
Yeah.
save us $800,000,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
because that's what we're looking at. For
You
these,
can
each of
have
these
that
rooms,
A classroom is sitting empty or
Yeah.
just becoming,
yeah,
so
yeah, this is the time to think about those things.
music rehearsal room is large and it opens onto the
Yeah.
great room.
When to have risers set up.
I wonder if the science handwork or foreign language class could do the same thing to allow the handwork and makerspace to.
Like to open to the great room or when?
Not to the great room,
Or
but
just
maybe
bigger.
just to another room.
Oh, like have it,
Just-
Oh, like having two rooms,
like in a.
Yeah.
like the math
diner.
intervention and the science
Connecting.
just be
connecting, and so,
adjacent, and
yeah.
then when they need to get their.
How expensive is it to partition, like too expensive?
Yeah,
You might as well just build 2 classrooms, yeah.
yeah,
The traditional one that's about to look for that is probably about $80,000. If not.
So another 100 square feet.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, all
okay,
right,
never mind.
I remember last time, and it's just occurring because I see in the title there, we talked about the intervention maybe taking place in the math classroom.
yeah, we did.
For the upper
Yeah.
grades.
So I think that, yeah, so,
That's a good point. It's for the other grades.
yeah. But then she's not in the math room. So that room could be used for other things. When she's in the intervention room, then the math room could possibly be used for something besides that. She doesn't need. For one period of day, she doesn't need her own classroom. That's what I'm saying. So you wouldn't, so. How could we work that? And I think that's a good discussion for her. For us to have with her, yeah, because right now she has her own classroom, but she really only uses it once. 1 hour a day, 1 period a day, so. That's that, we expanded into the space we have, kind of thinking.
Right.
Yeah, I like the thought of combining some of the specialized classrooms. I'll keep an eye on it here, but it sounds like maybe. If I'm reading this right, from your comments there, the science makerspace combining with math might be.
That's scheduling wise, that makes sense to me.
So do you want to check with her, or do you want to make that change?
The only thing that holds me back from saying that is the actual desks and chairs
Like
and
the
so forth,
setup
if
of
we're
it.
doing a setup for science. So that's the thing, those 3, science, makerspace and woodworking.
They're gonna be more like.
They're like-
table.
Like, here's the woodworking
Right.
kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and math would not be that. But I think maybe the math and foreign language together could be put together, because math,
Is
not gonna
that
be-
the
yeah.
whole class, because it's only 12.
Yeah, it's
And she
really,
can't use the conference room, community room for that?
How many kids
I don't know.
does she have in one room during math intervention?
It's usually at, you know,
Is it the
12,
same as
12, 13, yeah,
The
something like that.
intervention that we talked about earlier that we were gonna, that she
Do the
does in the
community.
library? and-
Yeah.
Is it like that? Is it small group?
It's middle schoolers,
schoolers.
it's like through, she has,
So six,
two to,
seventh, and eighth grades.
she's, yeah, teaching 3 levels of math at the same time, so it's at least 3 groups that she needs to be able to have.
Okay,
They function fairly, you know, they're our upper performing students, so they do perform pretty well on their own, but she does need to have. I would say she
Then-
doesn't need as big a classroom as she has now. Maybe 2/3 of the classroom.
then I would say it makes sense to combine it, because if we had another specialty like foreign language, it probably would not be 5 days a week.
Mhm.
Um,
And then she has the other space for intervention, which is in the lower grades area, but that could be where her desk is. I mean, I never
Well,
want to
we
make
got rid
it.
of the lower grades.
Oh,
one and
did we?
combined it with the
This one?
community
yeah,
room
Okay,
and the
No.
library,
we
Oh.
get rid of the,
right?
no,
I thought we said we could do the library or.
did we?
yeah, we
Okay,
were
we
going to
did.
ask Abigail, do you need a huge classroom and then also
Yeah, could you have an
another,
office and then host
could you have an office and then host your reading groups or your
in the
other thing, in
library?
like the library, or, and then
Okay.
for the rest of that job, that part of her job, she's in classrooms. That's
Yeah.
what we were talking about.
Mhm.
So reducing something in that area. And then combining math and foreign language into a class,
Mhm.
a smaller classroom
That's what I'm thinking.
than 960. So,
Or at
Well, they
least
would
not
need-
2 960 classrooms.
right,
Would
not
need
two,
960.
one
be
one
nine-
class instead of two.
Yeah.
So combining like the two. So just one classroom for math and foreign language.
Mhm.
That is a strategy I've seen in other charter schools too, so.
Yeah.
Think around this.
When I asked about that, what do you see outside, do they also have the space?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Maybe just make it under,
Is that?
maybe we'll make it under 40,000.
Love it.
I would like to see that. I'm hoping.
All right, the food service section didn't have any modifications to it. Down in building services, we reduced the number of custodial closets from 3 down to 1. And the general storage area. I heard the comment last time or the discussion about the current storage room, which is about 500 square feet, and that's a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
There were some that were saying no storage at all, there were some saying, yeah, we did. I left it there in whatever form we end up using it for. Maybe it's kindergarten storage, maybe it's building storage, it's just general. So it's.
I feel like we have a lack of, like, there's not a whole lot of storage designated spaces, so I would.
Yeah,
think that that's
so
good.
that the room of requirements, as we call it, um. Is mostly stuff that's not needed. It's sort of like, oh, we have a cabinet, we don't know what to do with, we'll stick it in here. I had one day, I just had a talk with everybody about how we need to clean the room out. And the next day there is a microwave in that room, so it collects. And we have not, it's been collecting for years, we haven't used it.
What do
for
you
probably
call-
6, the room of requirement.
And it's why is it a requirement?
Well, it's,
It's just like-
Harry Potter, it's the
Oh.
room, it's
Got
when
it.
you go in and whatever
it.
you need is there, that's
Got
what
it,
we
got
call it.
it.
It has other names as well,
Got
that's
it.
the kindest one, so I won't use the others. So I am not sure that space is needed at all, unless we really have something that we say, like the parent council has asked, but we're already increasing their space, so,
But
and
we
we,
don't-
and the things that are supposed to be in there are the backdrops, so we have another space for that. Costumes, which could also go in the stage area. So those are the things that are supposed to be in that room.
What about like I'm thinking like the push carts and like, is that all gonna be? Like in the workshop, facilities workshop?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's facility storage,
Okay.
so if they need more storage for their equipment.
Okay,
They have a space, maybe we would just increase
so
that. So
props, backdrops were like.
those
go.
would be going in the theater area,
Okay.
so,
Okay,
so. My feeling is that room just has a lot of stuff in it that we won't be taking with us.
yeah,
And, you know,
and this is the room that used to be the old workshop, or this is in between the bathrooms?
this is in between, this is, in between the bathrooms, yeah, behind the bathrooms, yeah.
Okay.
Coffee table.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm, yeah.
Which,
So,
the great room in stage storage, like, pretty, we're good at the 500 square feet.
Mm.
That's the size of what the ring of the barn is.
Mhm.
So.
Mm-hmm.
If that's too large, that can be used for other requirements.
yeah, yeah,
Like
So-
everybody.
I don't want the room of requirement to go with this.
Okay. So we're gonna keep general storage for now until we, okay.
And on the following page, or the next section is gonna be, staff restroom stayed at 3, the laundry stayed at 1.
Mhm.
We removed the pantry that had the dedicated space, it's someone else, we also removed the personal care room, the clothes changing, the neighboring, that's not like the health restroom. And that brings us to the end, which overall, our square footage dropped from, with contingency, 51,600 down to 46,600. But we was a little bit more away today and. We don't feel that number, but I'm thinking we're closer to 45, maybe more.
Yeah.
On the site part. We did a little bit of name shuffling here, so the grades 1 through 5 play area was kept. We added a section below it, which was grades 6 through 8. We heard the request to make it similar to maybe the courtyard that you currently have, which right now that comes in at about 3,000 square feet. Figured 4,000 was a good number too for now. We previously had a large church and track area. As a placeholder, but that's been removed. The good news for me, is the site is such an interesting size. It's too small to go 1 story, but it's big enough that if we do go 2 story, there's still a lot of area. You'll see on this sketch, it's about 40,000 square feet with the site. And right now, accounting for just the things that we know that we need, we're only at about 10,000 square feet, so there's plenty of.
Space to put like a trail that they can use to run that laps.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
And it's also helpful for us too, because, like I mentioned from the very beginning, we cannot bring the site to the creek. It wants to drain internally or back to the city. Storm drain in the street, so having some extra space on site to do stormwater retention and treatment is a good thing. So, long story short, we're not pressed for size if we do go to 2 story.
Okay.
Do you want to review just the cost, just because not everybody was here last time?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I gave. After a lot of hemming and hawing, Julie was so funny, she said, "I sat here for 3 hours, just to hear those words coming out. I know the prices." So I told you I wasn't gonna tell you what your class or school costs, but we talked about it anyway. The long and short of it. Was that
These are estimates. We can't hold company to any of these numbers.
absolutely. Thank you for that disclaimer.
Yeah.
Steel frame was a little more expensive than wood frame. Talking with the structure. 2-story was a little more expensive than 1 story. Overall, the cost per square foot number that I heard as, from our cost estimate consultants who do work in a lot of surrounding communities, including as close as Chico, they have estimated a lot of projects with the Unified School District. But they're currently in active construction on projects down in the Roseville area in Sacramento, and they just finished up one in Reno, which is actually really similar to what we're doing here. So they took all that cost data, and what they said is the number that would be really tough to beat would be about $700 a square foot for a 2-story blueprint. That includes a couple things which are increasing the cost, which are the fact that we have to assume prevailing wages, which means if public funding is used for any construction on a project, the government requires that they pay what's called prevailing wage. And then I mentioned it earlier too, but the fact that the project will likely have to go through the Department of State Architect increases cost a little bit as well.
And the 700, that was non-prevailing, right? It was like 750 to 800 with prevailing,
That's
right?
correct. So those numbers that I gave last time were kind of thoughts and very rough. The numbers that I have, that I mentioned earlier, which I'll say here in a second, are a little more refined, and they're actually backed up by data from another preliminary opinion of costs from a separate independent contractor, like I mentioned to you, for the chief charter schools. So these, I think, have a little bit more level of confidence to them than the numbers that I said to you last time. But they are still placeholder. Now that I can walk away from this meeting with what I would say is a 90 to 100% level of confidence in our program, I will provide this back to our cost estimating partners, and they're going to write up preliminary opinion cost for your project. So just like that other contractor did for Achieve, they'll do it for this one. In advance of that, though, I wanted to give us all something to think about, which were those numbers that I mentioned at the beginning. Anywhere from 25 to 30 million. And that's accounting for about a 15 to 20% increase because of DSA, and anywhere between a 10 to 30% increase because of prevailing wage. So something to keep in mind, jot down in your notes because it'll be fun to come back to later once they give us their cost opinion.
I don't think that we'll be able to forget it.
I saw yes when I said those things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wish it was different. I really do.
So I know sometimes like we like Susan and I haven't been like DSA and we've talked about all that, but do you guys all understand? Like we may need DSA, we may not need DSA. Do you guys all, we can run through that, or do you have a grasp or not really?
Not really.
Okay, yeah. So if we get Prop 2, if we can get Prop 2 funding, which is state funding, then they will require us to go through the DSA, which is Department of
State architect.
State Architect.
Basically means once we finish up the construction drawings, we don't give them to the city of Chico to review. They're not the authority having jurisdiction, as we call it, the people who tell us what to do. It's the Department of State Architect that tells us what.
And it just costs more because things have to be extra safe and extra checked, extra.
Exactly.
It takes more time.
Yeah, it can take more time.
Mhm.
So Julie has started some of that preliminary work, just because it can take time to get through that process. So the guidance that she got was start that process, and it doesn't cost us any money to kind of start that. And then if we do happen to get approved for Prop 2, then we've already started that process, right? So Prop 2 is a matching funding as well, so, but our Measure K, Measure C can be our match to Prop 2, so it's a 50-50, right? Split.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I feel like.
Particular
but,
detail.
so we have to match whatever they give us, right? They have certain requirements, they have not rolled that out necessarily yet, but we have a kind of a guide based on the previous propositions that have been passed. There will be a webinar coming up very soon, and keep checking my junk for the email. That explains what Prop 2 is, what they're looking for, and then they'll kind of, and then we can submit applications. And I'm sure that will be extensive. So, but the district will help us do that also. And then Measure C right? Measure C,
Mhm.
the district is working on what their process is gonna look like, so we can. But part of it is we needed to have this. To submit that,
Right.
so. Good. That makes sense.
Yeah, so when you submit to this department versus the city. The city's been taking a long time to do their reviews of everything, correct? Is that, am I right?
Not as long as DSA.
Okay. I thought it was gonna be later.
No.
Okay.
No, BSA,
No,
we
would
can,
much rather deal with this.
we can expect a longer timeline if we go through DSA.
So where will that potentially put the project against your guys' wanting?
I don't know, originally, I mean, the DSA approval dates we were hearing is like 18 months, I don't know what, I mean, you're gonna have a better idea. So, whereas the city is probably,
3 months.
yeah, 3 to 6 months, yeah, so, yeah, yeah, so a year to a year and a half. Different. But, you know, if we get $10 million, or $15 million. Kind of hard to say, no, we.
Yeah.
That's
If
fine.
we,
This,
yeah,
So,
and the numbers we're looking at to match. If we use, like, right now, we have basically 4 million set aside that is ours, nobody's else is gonna spend it. But in the local, in the Measure KC, but if we need more of that to match, you know, we would wanna apply for that and say, okay, we need. It's gonna take more than,
Yeah.
you know, that, so
Yeah.
there is an application process for, that they're establishing. And more money available in Measure C. But that process hasn't been established yet, and so to me, figuring out what we think our costs are gonna be and whether or not DSA is gonna help us. That's gonna help us apply for Measure
Measure
C, it's
C.
all different
Yeah.
bricks in the same.
Yeah.
Same sidewalk.
Jigsaw
Use as
puzzle.
well.
Yeah.
But
Oh, the
you're
sidewalk,
starting
yeah.
off with this process, so
Yeah.
either way it goes, you have this. breakdown.
we had, we had to do this regardless. So,
Yeah.
For
Mhm.
approval.
Yeah.
So,
This is good.
yeah,
All right.
so, yeah, go. for
A
it.
question about your previous experiences and at the risk of somebody getting me that you're looking. I'll say the name Turner Impact Capital. or-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tom,
I didn't know that there was anything
No.
negative or,
No, not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
How about-
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
We did a chief charter with them and they
Yeah.
got burned out of paradise. They came down and helped. It's like they did.
no, they just decided to get out of charter schools.
Really?
is
Yeah.
what, well,
That's
that's
what
what
they
they
told
told us.
That's what they told us, that they weren't gonna do charter schools
That
anymore.
could very well be true because I haven't done another project with Tom since then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
But their investors didn't wanna. And we're done with charter schools for some reason.
Choice, 'cause they-
Yeah, it is a non-choice, but it was their choice.
Yeah.
That's what they told us. and Maybe they'll get back into charter schools later.
I only brought it up because, not because of them specifically, but because of the lease back.
Yeah.
That's what they were proposing. to you.
Yeah, it is, it was.
Did they go far enough down the road with that you understood what that looked like for you financially?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But their
Yeah.
numbers to us were like 12 million
Yeah,
Total.
12-13 million total.
with land,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I remember
so,
that.
and
That's true.
you know,
So,
and,
like, when we started like getting back into it, we're like, what the happened?
yeah, well, you know, and,
Inflation.
and it did, I mean, when we walked out of the meeting where we got Chico Unified to approve the property,
Yeah,
you were there, they were like, if you hadn't approved it today, you would not be getting this
Yeah,
property for even
that.
half, or it would be twice this amount.
yeah,
Just because that's
Yeah.
what's going on in the community, so
Yeah.
it's, so, you know, I am concerned about the costs as we. Know that the state will be focusing on rebuilding LA.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
still don't know it, but we're proceeding as but, you know, with the
But there's
best intent. and
insurance stuff
expecting-
down there too,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, that's true.
So that we're kind of nearing the end of our first kind of agreement with you, right? Like this is kind of where, so can you tell me kind of like, what's the wrap up, like as we wrap with that first kind of contract with them?
So we need to have enough information to give to our cost estimating partners so that they can prepare an accurate preliminary. What that looks like is us taking this program, providing along with it, an executive summary or an informational document that summarizes a lot of the things that we talked about in our meetings. And then getting their preliminary opinion on cost back, going through a review of that with you, and then finalizing. So we have a couple of meetings left to get you to that point, but ultimately what we will be turning over to you is a schematic site plan, conceptual site plan, a schematic space plan, which would be a floor plan of the building. If we get to that point, I will say that if we go through the cost discussions with the estimators, and things just aren't looking right, or we just don't know the source of funding, it doesn't make sense to spend your money to pay us to for the plan. We don't really need it at this point in time. If that happens, the money that we have aside for that in our contract will not be touched. So we very well could leave you with a preliminary opinion of cost, an informational document that summarizes what you talked about, the finalized program summary, and the conceptual section. Or we got a full plan. So I think what I will do from here is finalize this program. I will set up a meeting to get back to our cost estimating partners. And I'll let them write up the document first. Sometimes I'll have folks talk to the cost estimators beforehand, but I've already talked to them 3 times and they're just waiting on this, so they're ready and I don't think them first before we have to go off and do their thing. So let them go off and do their thing and come back. I left the calendar you gave me on my desk, but your next meeting can do.
Oh, well, and that's a whole month away.
Okay.
So maybe we wanna do
It's the
something.
second Tuesday, same
Yeah,
time,
before that,
but we
Sure.
do have special meetings that we do for this.
Okay.
this committee is all made up of. Maggie loves it.
Keeps her interested.
Well, they told me that they would need about 2 weeks to get that. So if I deliver this to them
Okay.
tomorrow, we could have it.
Okay,
Okay, so it would be the 11th, or we can meet sooner. And if we feel
the
like
11th of March.
11th of March would be our next regular.
That's right,
schedule,
February,
that's a month.
yeah, February and March are the same.
That's
Yeah.
second Tuesday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or we can meet prior to that. We don't need to wait.
Cool. Would you be all right with me reaching out to them tomorrow?
Yeah.
Figuring out the time for it
And
and
we can schedule,
the 26th, 27th.
yeah, end of February.
Yeah.
So I will reach out tomorrow to my staff about the changes, so that if we can have further reduction, I
Yeah,
will let you know.
What time, February 26th? Maybe
Oh.
tentative,
6 probably, yeah.
Okay.
Seems to-
6
So
p.m.
26, 27.
26th and 27th, I am not here, so,
Okay.
Oh,
So then
right,
let's not do that.
26th, you're here, the 27th and 28th, you're not here.
right.
Okay, so the
27th and 28th.
26 would work, but not.
The 20, yeah, not.
So
the-
otherwise we push it to the following.
I'll shoot the 26th. I confirm with you.
Okay,
I'll also send you a electronic copy of the finalized program.
Perfect.
sounds good.
And then I took notes here too about some of the questions that we had, so I'll just type those up just for the heck of it.
So I leave town on the 26th.
Oh, you do?
Cause I have
Okay.
like a flight at like 8
But you could-
Wednesday.
Well,
Oh, I guess you,
potentially.
8 o'clock.
As a
Oh,
place
maybe you
for a
could Zoom.
a
I could
placeholder. Our
probably,
next
I might
March
be able to
meeting
Zoom if
Join
I
the
get
Zoom.
down to the, yeah.
See,
I
we're
can-
setting that one.
Maybe,
Yeah.
before you
Yeah.
get on the
Right,
plane at
that's
8.
that long. But, you know.
At least part of it.
I
think this
mean,
is our
because
first
we can't
regular
do it the
scheduled
next
meeting,
night,
we
the
actually
parent
know.
at night is that.
Yeah, no.
Schedule.
27th.
It'd have to be,
You just have to know.
I don't-
it'll be the 25th.
Yeah,
Tuesday.
yeah.
So then,
Yeah.
don't know.
that's-
I think our
Yeah,
timing
I'm
is gonna be
traveling.
really,
Yeah.
But I can
Well,
zoom in
what-
and travel.
I think the district here in the next
Um,
2 to 4 weeks
I
is
think
really
I
gonna have a
an
better idea of what
IEP,
they're
like,
gonna,
until
what this gonna look
3:30 or
like applying
4.
for Measure C.
Yeah.
So I think, and then we'll
3:15,
be
Yeah,
kind of
the
wrapping up
26th.
I
and
didn't
then
figure I
start
could leave before
whatever
4:30
that
here.
keeps me
Yeah.
at night, because that's like a whole new.
Yeah.
next one.
Okay.
We'll figure it out. We have Julie on our side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll give you plenty of time to get, you're going to Sacramento?
Yeah,
Sacramento?
it's okay.
Okay.
The least expect method, well, let me go back. In talking to our cost estimating partners, they told me a story, we were talking about pricing time. They said between 2020 and now, the wages for a pipe fitter, a union pipe fitter, a plumber, rose from $27 to $63 an hour. And that's union, that's prevailing wage, it's the same thing. It costs a lot to build a school with prevailing wage. And if you had mentioned that, Prop 2 is a match, sounds like up to 50%. If the cost of the school goes from 20 million to 30 million because you're using public funds. What if you didn't use public funds?
Yeah.
And if you built this.
Well, I think even if we use Measure C and Measure K, Julie said we still have to do prevailing wage.
If they're used for the construction of the school, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of charter schools use them creatively for things that are, well, even though they
Yeah.
came the playground.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're totally right. The thing that they told me, and again, these are folks that do a lot of schools, whether they're public or charter, or both. Their preferred method that they see as getting the best cost to benefit ratio is this. And that's just their opinion, that's the way that they.
I can see that because you get out of prevailing wage. And I think if that's. Right, if we get down this road and. That's the option that works, then that's.
Yeah, we've
Then we
already,
have to look at
you
it.
know, we've already talked to people about that.
Yeah.
You know, we've had them at meetings, so we've looked at other people besides Charter Impact to do that for us. And
Yes.
we've also talked about, you know, issuing bonds. Going with, yeah. As
Is-
a funding way. I kind of personally, the length of time to pay it back is a lot. And so as far as
For the lease
reducing,
back?
yeah,
Yeah.
as far as reducing, you know. People are making money on the fact that it takes a long time to pay it back, so just looking at the different costs. I am not sure lease back is really a lot of savings over DSA.
Over the
Yeah.
long term.
If I'd want, you know, I'd want to, if we do that, I would want to go back and look into issuing our own, you know, issuing bonds. And then paying them back, because you can pay them back as you can, rather than lease like that, you're stuck in that for 40 years.
Yeah.
And part of what we want to do is reduce our real estate
Yeah.
costs, you know, from what we're already paying here, so.
Yeah, our
Right.
monthly overhead, yeah.
Mhm.
That's great insight, that's why I was asking about.
Yeah.
Because if you've gone down that road enough to understand that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Been great.
I think originally when we were like, oh, this is. Nice. We don't have to raise all the money, and then I think we just started looking at it more.
Yeah.
And seeing that, and then when all the other measures and props came up, we're like, oh. So. But
In their words, I think it does a couple of things. It simplifies and speeds up the
Yes.
design and construction process because it's no longer DSA or prevailing.
yeah, they were giving us like an 18-month. Time frame.
Those guys are crazy. but yes. And I say that in a good way, because Tom's crazy, but
Yeah,
yeah, but you're totally right, that it's, how do I say this? It's different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the lesser of two evils, it's just a different,
it's
Yeah.
yeah different, so.
which is why I scoffed on the fact that they don't want to do that anymore, because like you said, somebody is making money off of the school, and it's a good investment for them.
well, and it's a good alternative if you don't have, like, that's the only option that works, right? Because you don't have to have the cash.
Right.
They do stuff.
How do you guys think about the other stuff?
Yeah. Okay,
Well, thanks.
did we cover it all? Did we miss anything?
I think we covered what we can.
Well, we will wait to hear back on the 26th.
Yes.
And we will adjourn at 7:22. Better than 9:01 the last time.
Mark, no, we're looking at February 26th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am actually traveling that evening, but
Oh,
it'll be fine. Well, I'll either zoom in or
well,
you
you have
can
a
text me.
Let's
or-
do this spreadsheet in your sleep now.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
It's 4.
Yeah, okay.
You can get those answers before,
Yeah,
like.
I
the
think we're
next
down
day
to, I have a couple of conversations to have,
Yeah,
just to be sure.
He
I'm
was
not-
gonna email Kevin tomorrow, she said.
yes, I heard
Yeah.
that. I wrote that down too, right here.
Which means
I
you
did
have,
too, I wrote a Susan checklist.
I wrote, checking
Maggie got-
Abigail and.
Abigail and Ashley.
Yeah.
That's right.
Both of them tomorrow,
Right, yep.
because Wednesdays I don't have any. I had 13 meetings yesterday.
Oh my.
13 I went back and counted them and went like, oh my gosh. I hope people are doing the things I told them to.